Welcome to Wake Up with Nubian Tigers Talk. Nubian Tigers are a group of people who met at Princeton University and have continued to be friends throughout the decades. The COVID-19 pandemic and the civil demonstrations following the murders of Breonna Taylor and George Floyd by the police motivated us to harness our life experiences and professional expertise and contribute our voices to the broader discussion of the conditions of life throughout Black America. My name is Michelle Jacobs, and I'm with my co-host, Ray Smaltz. Before we get to today's guest, I'll turn it over to Ray.
And for those of you listening for the first time, the acronym WAKE, or WAKE, stands for Wisdom, Advice, Knowledge, and Engagement. And the UP is the abbreviation for Princeton University, but only backwards. When the late civil rights icon and longtime Congressman John Lewis was only 23 years old, he delivered an inspiring speech at the historic March on Washington in 1963 and punctuated the end of it with, "Wake up, America, wake up, for we cannot stop and we will not and cannot be patient." This podcast aspires to wake up our listeners to some of the very same struggles within America today and across the globe. And Michelle, we're less than a month away from one of the most consequential presidential elections in our lifetime.
So you've all had some very interesting and wonderful points to make, and we're curious to see whether you have some comments amongst yourselves to what you heard from the other panelists. So we're going to open up right now, and anyone who wants to jump in and get started is fine.
I'm going to jump in. When Larry was talking about funding campaigns and having run for an office, but not as an independent person, funding is so important. And I try to stress among Black voters, especially who, one, if you can get them to the polls, you're doing good, but the importance of providing contributions to campaigns. I don't think I know I didn't have many people contribute to my campaign, but if it were not for the party at that time, I wouldn't have been able to do the ads that I did. They did radio for me, they did television. All that adds up to big dollars. And I believe my party, and I put it out there, I'm a member of the Republican Party. So in Burlington County, the Republican Party at the time was the power that had been in control for 40 years. They raised substantial amounts of money that allowed me to do the television, the radio, the printed color ads, the letters that were sent out to the voters in Burlington County. And without the dollars, it's hard for a candidate to get their name out there to get that recognition. So it's so important, if there's a candidate that you believe in, that you contribute. It doesn't even have to be big money. $5, $20. The cost of postage now is outrageous. When you're looking at 55 cents to send a first class letter, how many people can you reach with postage that much? So when Larry said he would have started earlier, and I think you almost in this day and time even have to start maybe 2 years ahead of when you think you want to.
That's right.
To get the money that you need to run, especially if you want to be independent and not part of party politics.
I ran statewide for a U.S. Senate seat, but I remember like 10 years ago when Congressman Payne Sr. was still alive and still in that office. He was the first African-American elected to the House of Representatives from New Jersey in the history of the Republic. You know, when he was elected, I think he was elected back in 1986. He said in the late 90s, that you couldn't even consider running for Congress unless you could raise $1 million. And that was back in the 90s. You know, the amounts of money that are needed to win office, you know, really work against the average citizen holding office. And that's why when we look at the makeup of the Senate and the makeup of the House, they're mostly millionaires, either millionaires in terms of the actual amount of wealth they hold or their personal net worth. They're millionaires. But be that as it may, if you want to be in this game, You got to be able to win the money. That's what made Bernie Sanders' campaign so significant. It wasn't that he ran. I mean, he wasn't the first proclaimed socialist to run for office in the United States. What made him different was that he was beating them at their own fundraising game.
Mm-hmm.
Bernie Sanders received more small donations than any other candidate in US history. I mean, it was almost a running joke, you know, send me $27.50 because that was like the average amount of money that people were sending. He was beating them at their game. He was raising millions of dollars. And I think that is what made the party essentially declare war against him. The party establishment was at war against Bernie. Never in the history of American politics had you had 27 Democrats running in the primary. And you could see what a farce that was when you looked at the delegate breakdown with the number of delegates actually elected. You know, I'm not going to go through all of them, but Elizabeth Warren, 63 delegates. Bloomberg, the billionaire, 59 delegates. And everybody else was in single delegates. Bernie Sanders was the only one that had 1,151 delegates. He was beating them at their game. So if the left wants to participate significantly in this game, in this electoral game, it's going to have to become more adroit, more effective at fundraising. And it's going to have to, and you know, it's funny because this really, it kind of goes against the ethos of the left being like anti-money and everything, but you can't be in this game unless you're willing to raise significant amount. Like the next time, if I run for Senate again, you know, I got to raise at least $500,000, at least $500,000 statewide, you know, to do all the things that people were talking about, that have the mailing and the commercials and everything. You know, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
So if it's as difficult as it is for you two who are in a northeastern state, how difficult, Mary, is it for a candidate, let's say from Missouri or someplace else in the Midwest?
The challenge is really the same. I mean, that's why it's so tempting for people to take, you know, money from corporations and money from PACs. That's why people sell their souls, because they say, well, you know, once I'm elected, then I'll renounce those influences. And, you know, the road to hell is paved with good intentions, right? And people, I mean, I think that it becomes clear that after you win at that election, instead of setting on your agenda, you spend an inordinate amount of time just raising money for the next election. It's addictive.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
So Ray and I were discussing an issue, and it's kind of related to something you were saying, Larry. There's been a lot of dissension among the left, or people who believe they are progressive, about the Democratic ticket of Biden-Harris. Many people would have preferred to see some other names up there. So we're curious as to your views about what voters should do in this situation, since that is in fact the ticket, Biden-Harris.
Well, my position is already public. I've already issued a public statement on support of the Biden-Harris ticket. You know, from the beginning, when I ran for U.S. Senate and when I was chairing Sanders' campaign, I said, I'm working to get the Democratic Party nomination for Bernie Sanders. But should that not happen, I will support whoever the Democratic Party nominee is. For me, it's a choice. It's a choice between, you know, a centrist establishment Democrat, which is Biden, and a fascist, which is Trump. Make no mistake about what Donald Trump represents. And that may sound like hyperbole to a lot of people, but I tell you, I could make a case. We're my lawyers here. We could make a case that Donald Trump is the titular leader of a fascist movement in this country that has violent fascist elements in its ranks.
Absolutely.
The Department of Homeland Security draft came out, and it said that the greatest threat to American safety right now is right-wing extremist violent groups. And Donald Trump has thrown in his lot with these people. He was endorsed by the Ku Klux Klan in 2016. He was just this week endorsed by when Black people are marching in the street talking about Black Lives Matter and stop police brutality, Trump was endorsed by the 355,000 member Fraternal Order of Police and the National Police Organizations Association, which is all the police supervisors groups. So all the police, the Klan, these militias, they've all thrown their lot in with Trump. We are at a very dangerous crossroads in the United States. And for people who think that that's hyperbole, all you have to do is look at the history of the United States, particularly in the 1930s, when the fascist party was having rallies at Madison Square Garden and goose-stepping up and down Fifth Avenue. I'm not making this up and down Fifth Avenue. You know, when people think of fascism, they think of like a character like Pinochet. They have a caricature of Pinochet from Chile, a guy with huge epaulets on his shoulders and jackboots on. Hitler did not seize power in Germany. Hitler was elected. He was elected. He was part of a parliamentary coalition.
Exactly.
And that's what's going on here in the U.S.
So, Mary, you said code red.
Yes.
So let's hear. Is that pretty much what you're thinking?
It's an absolute code red. I mean, Ademu said it best. And so I'm not going to try to paraphrase it and say it a different way, but I think there has been no more critical election in our lifetimes as this one is. And so it's difficult for me to understand anyone who has not decided about where they stand. You're either supporting this fascist, this traitor to the country, or you're going to accept the leadership of Biden and Harris. Now, in doing so, I know that there will be and should be a lot of pressure for progressive issues to be placed forward in the agenda and acted upon. But those issues will not get any hearing whatsoever under Donald Trump.
So I have a question for all three of you now. The Black vote turnout rate declined for the first time in 20 years in a presidential election. It actually fell some 7 to 8 percentage points. We can talk about all the different reasons why that happened, but what are some of the reasons why each of you guys, like if you had one reason or point that you'd like to make that Black turnout decreased in 2016, what would you or could you attribute it to? Teresa, what do you think?
Failure to get out the vote. I know at a local level, the parties typically have people who have lists of all the voters. The Republicans will have their list, the Democrats will have their list. And when somebody comes to the poll and a challenger is listening to the name, they'll check that person's name off the list as someone who's come in to vote. And I think a lot of what happened, at least locally in my county, is that there was no follow-up with the people who didn't come out to vote. Because the year that President Obama ran for the first time, everybody and their mother and brother came out to vote. That number went down a little bit the second time he ran. And I think failure to get out the vote this last time, for whatever reason, and I'm not sure because I was a Hillary supporter, people were not moved by Hillary, and were uncomfortable with giving her their vote. But in my mind, it beat the alternative. And like I said, I'm a registered Republican. There was no way in hell I was voting for Trump. There is no way in hell I'm voting for Trump this time. And Hillary, in my mind, the national politics is a lot different sometimes than the local politics. And it's easy for me to be a Republican at the local level, at my county level, because I've seen what they've done and what they can do. But on the national level, not happening. It is not happening. Which is one of the reasons I'm probably going to go back to being an independent. But just getting out the vote, getting the message to people that it's important for them to vote, to get out. And in a lot of cases, actually having to go get people and drive them to the polls. And like I said, the first time President Obama ran, there were people coming in vans with people, to people who had never voted before in life were coming out to vote. And they just didn't do it for Hillary. And I'm not exactly sure why, but her press didn't help.
And some things her husband said didn't help. I mean, I was a Bill Clinton semi-fan, but when he and Hillary said things about Barack Obama during that primary season, I deeply resented it. And I never really embraced Hillary. I voted for her, but there was no enthusiasm. And I'm sure that I am typical. I think when we voted for Barack Obama, there was a sense of history behind us that was not replicated in trying to elect the first woman. It just, for Black people to elect a white woman, it was like, whatever. It just wasn't there. And I think that really speaks to the lack of voter turnout and voter interest in that election.
I'm wondering if you all have seen this at the local level or at a state level even. Sometimes with Black voters, they tend to be a one issue voter. So, for example, in years where abortion rights are prominent in the political debate, you get a lot of Black voters who vote against the Democratic Party because their religious beliefs tell them that having an abortion violates some religious principle, or even the issue of homosexuality. In our community, we have historically, hypocritically, had quite a high level of homophobia. So I'm wondering if you guys have seen that in your political experience, where the one issue voter becomes an obstacle to getting a person elected.
Yes. And I think that's a challenge to a campaign, to not allow things to be decided on the basis of one issue. In Missouri, the issue is always abortion. We're still wringing our hands over a woman's right to choose. But I think a smart politician will reach out and help voters understand how other issues are of equal importance to them. And I remember when I worked on Nixon's campaign, reaching out to Black voters to talk about environmental issues that they thought didn't have anything to do with them. They're not about the birds and the bees and the trees and whatever. Who cares? You live in the city, you take a tree for granted, it's there. But clean water is an important issue to our communities. Dumping grounds in our communities is rampant, and it makes our children sick. So, but people, don't pitch those issues unless they're being more thoughtful in their campaign and running a very diverse campaign that helps voters understand the importance of all of the issues in their community.
Go ahead, Larry.
No, go ahead.
I sometimes wish we had civic classes again.
Oh, yes.
There are so many people who do not understand politics, government, voting, and it gets. One year when I was running for freeholder, I had gone by my parents' church and I was talking to some people, and one of the deacons said to my father, "You know, I like what your daughter is saying. I just wish I wish I could vote for her." And so my father had to explain to him that there was a difference in voting in the primary and a
Mm-hmm.
difference in voting in the general election.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Another example, I was getting my hair done. I was at my hairstylist on election day, and I had finally gotten my hairstylist interested in voting and some of the issues. So a young lady came into the salon. She was excited. She had voted. So my hairstylist said, "Well, who did you vote for?" And she said, "I don't know. I just pushed the D button." And I said, "Okay, so that means you didn't vote for me." So she had no idea who she voted for. She had no idea what the issues were. She had no idea what the public questions were, anything. She just went in and pushed the vote button. And, you know, I was always raised, vote for the person, not the party. Look at the issues, look at the person. Who do you think can do the job you want done? And the frustrating thing is that a lot of people don't do that. So they miss out on issues that are important to them. And one of the issues we had one year I was running was a light rail line. Freeholders wanted to give approval for a light rail line. And it was important to me because it meant people in the communities along the river who did not have transportation could get on the train and get to the warehouses and places along that line for jobs. And people weren't aware of that. They didn't know that. And there were people who were coming out against that. And I'm fighting to get this so that people can get to work. The same thing I created a bus system. Burlington County is the largest county in the state of New Jersey, and it has a lot of rural areas. There's very little public transportation. So we created a bus line to help people get to the New Jersey Transit or to the New Jersey Transit Light Rail. Those were some of the issues I dealt with, and people just had no idea of some of these issues that impacted their lives and were there to make their lives better and easier. And I just think civic classes, what, what other way or maybe doing workshops in churches and things like that. People need to know more about how to vote, who's running, all that kind of stuff that they just don't know and don't pay attention to, and is important to their lives. And the other part of that is a lot of people come out for presidential elections, but don't come out for school board, don't come out for mayor, city council, sheriff. These
Right.
are the people that really impact their lives at a local
Right.
level
On a daily basis.
on a daily basis. These are the people who set the tax rate. These are the people who tell you what your child's going to be learning in school, how much they're going to be spending on the superintendent's salary, who's going to be the next police chief. All of these type of things, and people they won't vote in the off year elections, but they'll come out for the presidential election. And that's the local elections are where they really need to be coming out and voting. So it gets to be very frustrating when you see just the lack of interest in people in the process and getting involved and participating.
Something that's come up
Wait,
that,
I think Larry
oh, I'm
Larry
sorry,
wanted
Larry,
to-
did you have a comment you wanted to make?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I just wanted to say regarding question you asked about the decline in the voter turnout in 16. I think it was because Barack Obama wasn't on the ballot. I mean, we came out in record numbers in 8 because because a black man was on the ballot for the first time in American history. And then we came out in almost those same numbers in 12 because a black man was on the ballot running for an unprecedented second term as president. And then the black man wasn't on the ballot in 16. And the numbers went down. I mean, I wasn't surprised that the numbers went down. But one of the things I want to say is that black people should not only come out when we have a black person on the ballot. We got to learn to look at the platform. You know, we got to learn to look at what are the issues that this candidate stands for, and are these positions that are going to benefit, you know, me and my community. And I really think that that's a big hurdle we have to get over. You know, we have to get a little bit more focused on the platform and not just skip, you know, the race is important. I'm not one of these people gonna say race ain't important. It is important. You know, we're fighting for a degree. We're fighting against racist barriers now. So it is important, but it's not the only factor that should be in the formula of your decision making. Platform is just as important. And I think we all can see, because of the coronavirus crisis, that we need a system of universal health care in the United States of America.
Yes.
We need universal health. We need Medicare for all. I mean, if you don't see that now, you may never see it. So, and then the other thing to keep in mind is that Hillary Clinton did win the popular vote. She won by 2.9, almost 3 million votes. She lost the Electoral College because of 3 states. I believe it was Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, right? That's where she lost. Mm-hmm. You know, so this whole question, the Electoral College is another holdover from slavery. You know, I can understand, you know, I might not agree with it, but I can understand why the founding fathers might have thought that we need an interlocutor group in here to make the decision. But that was in 1776. This is 2020. People are educated now. We should abolish the Electoral College. We should have direct election of the United States. Another institution we need to look at is the Senate. Half of the senators are elected by 18% of the population. You know what we have, in my humble estimation, in America now, is we're moving toward a neo-apartheid state, a country where the majority of citizens will be black and brown and yellow and red, but somehow through finagling and gaming the system, gaming the Electoral College, gaming the Senate, there's still gonna be a rich, white, elite minority that will be running the country. Elections notwithstanding.
Absolutely. I think the evidence that is out there for everybody to see is when the president ordered the workers to go back and face death because he wanted to make that money.
Yes.
Put that economy back into motion.
Yes.
I don't care if you have any protection. I don't care if you're getting paid. Get back to work. For the first time, people felt like slaves.
That's right.
They felt like serfs being ordered back to an uncertain, you know, future of possible death, long-term illness that could bring their financial ruin. But they were told to get back to work,
right,
or lose your job and get nothing. I thought that was the cruelest thing I'd ever witnessed.
So let me ask you guys this question, though. Larry, assuming that people have not gotten that sophisticated in the last 4 years, will someone like Kamala Harris on the ticket make a difference in terms of voter turnout?
I think it will make a difference. I think Kamala being on the ticket will excite some people and will bring some people out to vote. But, you know, it's really Joe Biden's fight. Joe Biden is running for president, not Kamala Harris. Kamala is the vice president, and she will help. Joe Biden got to get in this fight like a junkyard dog. He can't fight this thing like according to the Queen's rules of boxing of the beginning of the 20th century. The Republicans don't give a damn about the law, the Constitution, or anything else. They fighting like guerrilla fighters. They're determined to hold on to this thing by any means necessary. And Joe Biden is campaigning on a platform of civility and politeness. That is not going to win this election. He got to get out there and call Trump a liar to his face, call him a pathological liar to his face. Every time he does something that hurts the people of it. Like the COVID, 200,000 people have died because of a policy decision. It's not incompetence. It's not clownishness. A policy decision was made. This is what the book that just came out, I can't think of all the, you know what I'm talking about. The book that just came out showed that Trump knew. He knew in February how dangerous this thing was. He knew it was airborne, but he continued for 2 months to tell people, oh, it's like, these are his words. He said, like magic, like magic is going to disappear. Can you imagine?
I was telling Larry, I was telling people that, and Teresa mentioned it, you know, that if you wear a certain sign or something like that, you know, with a candidate's name on it, you know, that they'll send you back from voting. To me, people should just be out in front of polling places with placards which say 200,000. That's it. That's it. Just 200,000.
Exactly. That sends a message.
Well, I have to tell you, it's been wonderful and fascinating talking to the three of you. I suspect, you know, now I'm going to be clairvoyant, that we might have to get back together after November to catch up and do some kind of analysis of what happens after Election Day. Yes. So I hope that you'll all be open to rejoining us so that we can discuss where we are in November. But thank you so much, everyone. It's been an enlightening and fascinating decision. And thank you so much for joining us for this very important talk.
Thank you for having us. Thank you.
And whether you vote by mail or in person, vote this year.
Agreed. Everybody come out to vote. Yes.
Vote red.
On behalf of Wake Up with Nubian Tigers Talk podcast, we'd like to thank our guests, Mary Nelson, Princeton class of 77, Larry Ham, class of 78, and Teresa Brown, class of 1975, for all of their critically important political and voting knowledge in advance of this year's presidential election. I hope our listeners will benefit. As always, we want to acknowledge Mr. Robert Hunter, accomplished musician and composer, for creating the theme to our podcast.
If you enjoyed what you heard today, follow us on our YouTube channel at Nubian Tigers Podcast. You can also find us on Twitter. Our handle is @Nubian Tigers as one word. And of course, you can always check us out on our website, nubiantigerspodcast.com, where in addition to the podcast episodes, you can also find helpful resources to help you explore the subject of each podcast. Please join us next time when we share a series on COVID experiences of Black doctors and patients. Looking forward to sharing some wisdom with you next time.
Wake up, wake up, wake up.